People and process adoption. Well, one of the other things that can really lose all that efficiency entitlement and prevent you from any attainment is the people in a process adoption. We all know years ago blanking panels came out, and they were hailed as the best thing to put in your data center, and they truly are. They are an airflow management device that really helps you take that first step into managing the air streams inside your data center. However, how many people have been in a data center where, yeah, I know we have blanking panels, I know we should put them in, but we don't always get them in. Or we start off right and blanking panels disappear and whatnot. There's certain problems with that, that to drive adoption. Same thing exists for containment. So let's look at it. Obviously in the cold aisle, some of the things that winds up happening in a cold aisle is if I achieve total containment and I have a cold aisle containment, I normally see a lot of people overdriving the air volume in the cold aisle as a means to manage the rest of the temperature in the data center. When I first walk into the main room of a data center and it's a data center designed with cold aisle containment, I expect it to be warm or hot because that is what it's supposed to be. A lot of people are not ready for that leap when you go to cold aisle containment. As a means to manage that expectation, they overdrive the air supply in the cold aisle, driving down your delta T across your IT equipment, therefore, as a result, managing the remaining space in the data center to be not so dramatic. So again, that's energy consumption. You want to try to minimize that. In the hot aisle, well, the hot aisle is just plain old hot. It's not unusual to see the staff putting perf tiles in the hot aisle, or have a perf tile, and we go into hot aisle containment data centers that we've put in, and we come back, for a maintenance, and there's a stack of perf tiles with a suction cup. And what they want the IT tech to do is when you're working in the aisle is to actually take out a solid tile and put in a perf tile that they're standing on while working in the aisle. Obviously, that's waste. And that's great if it was only for the hour or the 2 hours that they're working in the aisle. But let's face it, it gets left in there. Before long, the stack of half a dozen perf tiles that were sitting there at the end of the aisle are gone, and they're all in hot aisle somewhere. That's problematic. That's the stuff that can, again, erode your entitlement for gaining that efficiency. And then, of course, we see the same thing in hot aisle is the removal of a bunch of blanking panels to get that cool air blowing on the IT tech. And that's obviously a problem. And then on the chimneys, rack chimneys, the door needs to be closed as much as possible. And ideally, the rack-to-rack type cabling should not prevent the door from closing. Meaning, a lot of times you'll see them run, temporary wires run out or run up to the cable tray, and then laced into the rack rather than going through the actual cable openings. All that type of behavior can limit your ability to reclose the door and reseal the rack. That's problematic. So one of the other things we would like to talk about is the data center needs to own and drive the process ownership and adherence to maintain the containment integrity. Every one of these solutions has a problem with maintaining containment integrity as it comes to working inside the environment. Yes, day one when I leave and it's installed, you're going to have your 3% containment integrity. However, when I go back in 3 months, 6 months, a year, or a couple of IT revolutions that happen, all that tends to erode. And driving process adoption, just like blanking panels, is required to maintain containment integrity. And whether that be training or a watchdog system, that needs to be in place. One of the other important notes is, the rack chimney type of system, if it's just closing the door to return the containment integrity, keep in mind the entire space is cool. So I don't really care where perf tiles are in the data center. But if you're just closing the door, the IT tech is already trained to maintain rack security. It's their responsibility to, tag out access to a rack and return rack security by closing and locking the door, thereby returning containment integrity. So that's something to think about as well. Some of the other challenges just wanted to go over some of the pictures we can talk about in detail for the solutions. This is a chimney, rack-based chimney type solution that is going around some of the obstructions when we talked about the obstructions. This is actually a small little arc in the chimney to return it into the return plenum. Obviously, this can be designed in or retrofitted, but one of the things to note is, which way is the cable tray going? Yeah, it's over the rack, and yeah, you can waterfall into the back of the rack, and all that's nice, but what happens if you need to run a cable tray the opposite direction? Okay. You have to put it in the main aisle because you've got this wall of chimneys across the back of the rack. If you're in the back of the rack trying to get to the wires, you have to move around front to actually lay in another waterfall. A consideration, not a barrier, but a consideration. This is what we call the rack integrated, physically bolted to the rack. A whole lineup of racks, ducted aisle. This can be ducted hot or cold, and this would actually be bolted to the racks. End of row doors provide a totally contained aisle. With the Wright line system, we are right at the 3% containment integrity for this type of system. So, and you can actually see the racks and ductworks. Those are all clear. They're shown blue only so they actually show up. This is a rack-independent aisle containment system with a variety of different manufacturer racks. The previous one had all consistent racks. Right? Remember when we talked about that? Having consistent racks in aisles is really nice, and I love that. Well, a lot of times data centers aren't like that. You see a variety of different racks and different heights, different widths, different depths. How do you contain that type of aisle? Well, we have an independent containment system that adjusts to that, maintains the containment integrity, and allows you to have free and unfettered access to your equipment racks. And you can actually change out an entire rack if you wanted to. You can roll out an entire rack, roll up another one that is that is taller or shorter, and adjust the overhead device to reseal the aisle containment. This is another version of what we call vertical wall containment. When, as an aisle becomes incongruent overgrowth, meaning whether there be cabinets that were removed, physical structure of the building in the way, this entire vertical wall would be the return path for the heat into a return plenum, whether that be a drop ceiling or an actual dedicated plenum, but not necessarily have racks in every location. This type of system would allow you to have no racks even, and or grow it in a modular fashion and have vertical blanking as shown in the drawing to take up spaces where racks should be, or even put in freestanding equipment. If you are actually having some of those non-rack based equipment, you could actually connect it up to this type of system. So there'd be no stress on the actual freestanding equipment. Another version of independent aisle containment that integrates some management, wire management, overhead management of wires and or bus duct. Again, same type of concept, freestanding aisle, where before the aisle was supported from the ceiling. Same type of concept, but supported from the floor. There's actually a version of this sitting out in the expo showroom, and we can, feel free to stop by the booth and we'll show it to you. But the main idea is that, yes, you want hot aisle or cold aisle. You want it freestanding. You don't know what kind of racks are going to come in or when they're going to come in, but you want to be able to handle them when they do, of any size. This system would give you that kind of capability. Last this is a cold aisle, what we call the fire activated. This is one of our new developments for a flat cold aisle with an underfloor supply. This can be connected up to standard racks or odd-sized shaped racks if you want. It is bolted to the racks, and then during a pre-action mode, essentially all the tiles stand up and would allow any type of fire suppressant to enter the aisle. One of the last things that we wanted to talk about was the trade-offs with fire detection, fire suppression. Every other system, you'd need to do something inside the aisle. In a greenfield, that's not too hard to think about or too ugly to do, because you're installing a fire suppression system. But in a brownfield, this becomes very attractive because the fire suppression system would already be in place. You can install this, connect it to a pre-action system, or run it off a fusible link, and the ceiling would open.